Welcome to each and every one of you as we explore in this speaker series through the Universal Church of the Master. We are so excited to be presenting life passages and how we can be there as a comfort for ourselves and for each other. And I'm just so grateful. I'm Reverend Janet Childs, and I just want to acknowledge that this particular speaker series is very profound because it's going to give us all a chance to share our wisdom and share our experience. We're going to hear from our wonderful Reverend Donna Christensen, who is a life passages doula. And I'm so glad she's changed that terminology. It's commonly known as death doulas. And while I appreciate the honesty of that, life passages doula really expresses what it is all about, how we can be there for ourselves and for each other in these life passages, how we can be that caring presence, and how we can hold the energy for ourselves and for each other to have meaningful, loving, and wonderful times as we make these life passages. Because it's often been in our Anglo-American society in the United States a taboo subject to talk about becoming ill or going through a dying process and after death. And many times in my experience as a founder of the Center for Living with Dying program, I have found that conspiracy of silence keeps people isolated, and it makes it afraid. It makes it scary to talk about these things. If we can address these ahead of time, before we're going through the process, chances are we're going to be able to ask for and receive more of what we need and actually make it happen. So I can't tell you how happy I am. We are going to share experiences, and Donna and I have many stories and experiences to share, and then we're going to invite you to share your experiences and what you know. And then we're going to do probably a little meditation on getting more comfortable with really addressing these life passages and how we can do that for ourselves and how we can create safe place for each other to do that. And I'm just going to say that this is the candle that had to come out tonight. And I don't know if you can see it, but it's almost like a galaxy. Okay? And both Donna and I agreed that it needed to be a white candle to bring in all of the energy of all of the colors of the spectrum into this moment and to bring the power of that presence that can be when we surround ourselves with it. We can be honoring that, acknowledging that, and bringing that to each other. That beautiful compassion, that beautiful safety, that beautiful honesty, and that beautiful moment where we can take a breath, my friends. Take a breath and just do it with me. And let us just get grounded into this present moment. I am here. I am with an open heart. I am here to explore my life. I am here with open heart and open eyes. I am here to walk my road. And just feel your body, your mind, your heart, your soul, your spirit just here right now. And just to know that in a beautiful way, we are the best support for ourselves and for each other, and that we create this sacred place to acknowledge the fears, the struggles, the victories, the love, the exchanges, all of it we honor tonight. So I'm going to put the candle right back here. And this candle will go to Donna. So I'm going to start off with our wonderful Reverend Donna Christensen. She's an amazing, amazing person because when we are confronted with these incredible life issues that we are dealing with, it's very important that we address them. So, how can we be the best support for ourselves, each other, and our loved ones? We can make end of life a spiritual and heartfelt journey where love is given and received beautifully. How do we be present for those incredibly healing and meaningful life passages? We will work on how do we prepare, how we can, with all of the dimensions of our being, hold that. And I just want you to know that our wonderful Reverend Donna Christensen has been doing her life passages doula work for a long time. And so I'm going to start with Reverend Donna and invite her to share her experiences and her wisdom.
Thank you, Jan. I'm Donna, and I'm a retired RN. I was graduated from nursing school in 1972. So it's been over 50 years that I've been a nurse, and I keep my license active because I will always be a nurse. So in 2017, I retired from clinical nursing. I'd worked in the hospital in the 70s and 80s, and then I transitioned to clinical nursing. And I worked at Palo Alto Medical Foundation for 30 years in both cardiology and neurology. And during that time, I was already always interested in end of life, but I did not have the time to pursue it. My husband, Bill, a treasurer, became ill and needed a lot of care. He transitioned in 2023. So when I retired, I had two goals. One was to become ordained, and I studied under Reverends Mary and Tom Gary, and I was ordained in 2019, in May of 2019. My other dream was to become a end-of-life doula, which is also known as a death doula, and I do prefer the term a life passages doula. Similar to a midwife who is birthing children into the world, here we're assisting patients as they leave this earthly plane. So I graduated from an accredited program in March of 2020. It was a International Doula Givers Association uh, sessions were done, and it was just at the start of COVID. So everything was closing up. The my husband was in the nursing home and the staffing was terrible. So I really had to focus on getting permission to go in and help take care of him with the scarcity of nursing at the time. And so I wasn't able to do a lot with the transitions. But as time went on, I was able to get more and more involved with passages. In uh, in 2023, my mother-in-law passed, and I want to tell you a little story about that because it was very important. She was 97 years old, and at the time, I was very fortunate because she had an advance directive, which are people familiar with advance directives? If you are, raise your hand. Okay, thank you. So she had her advanced care directive, and it clearly stated that she wanted to die peacefully and she wanted to die at home. In addition to that, she also had what was called a pulse form. A pulse form is physician orders for life-sustaining treatment. And on that, she indicated the same. She did not want CPR. At 97, she wanted to go peacefully in her bed at home. So that was our goal. That was our goal to assist her with that. We made sure that everyone in the family had a copy of her advance directive, and also her physician had copies. Everywhere, every time she went anywhere to see any doctor, we brought a copy of that to ensure that everyone was on the same page, and that's very important. So 4 days before her 98th birthday, I went over to see her. I went to see her almost daily, and I went to see her, and she was complaining of a little distension in the abdomen. It was in the morning. She just had breakfast, and she had no pain. She was just concerned about this. She felt like she needed to have a stool, a bowel movement, and it wasn't coming. So I said, we'll just monitor it and, make sure that it's going to be okay. So later that afternoon, I went by her house, and the distension was actually doubled in size. And I said, Nona, we're going to have to go to the hospital because being a nurse, if you die of an impaction, I'm never going to be able to forgive myself because that's something that can be easily remedied. I said, if it's something more serious, I promise you, I will get you home. I will get you home. So, with that promise, she agreed to go to the hospital. So we went to El Camino Hospital, Los Gatos, and we waited and we waited and we waited because she wasn't in any distress. There was no hurry for the staff to take care of her. They did a CT scan and it actually showed that she had a bowel obstruction. And it wasn't in a place that was easily reached. And she wasn't a surgical candidate. So they said there's nothing we can do for her. She can be discharged to hospice, and they anticipated she would be with us a couple weeks. Well, they kept her overnight, and the next morning I got to the hospital and I was frantically trying to get her home. She was actively dying. You can tell when someone's actively dying by the loss of their skin color becomes mottled and they get cold, and she started picking at the sheets, and those are signs that, death is near. And I had promised her that I would get her home, and I was just pulling strings all over the place. I was total pain in the rear end to the staff. And finally, at 12:30, the ambulance showed up, and we were starting to transport her. And they said, if she dies in the ambulance, we have to bring her back to the hospital. And I said, if she dies in the ambulance, you are going to take her home. She is going to be in her bed in her home. So that took a lot because my brother-in-law was there, her son. I'm the daughter-in-law. This is her son saying, no, she'll have to come back to the hospital. And I'm like, over my dead body. She is going to be home. So the whole time I was with her during that, I was a coach saying, hang on, we're getting you home. We're getting you home. We're going in the ambulance, the whole way in the ambulance. Keep breathing, Nona. You're going to make it home. We got her home, we got her into bed, and she did pass an hour and a half later. It was so rewarding to me that she passed in her bed because that is what she wanted. It was extremely peaceful. Most of the family had arrived. They were able to say their goodbyes to her in her bedroom, and there was no hurry. The hospice nurse was there. They'd gotten hospice set up in those 4 grueling hours at the hospital. And the hospice nurse said, when do you want us to pick up her body? And I said, there's no rush. There's no rush. I said, I want to bathe her and get her into one of her nightgowns. And we're going to just stay with family for a while. And they said, no problem. And the mortuary was fine with that. There was absolutely no need to hurry. So we all sat down, we had a meal, and then I and my and 4 of her aides were there at the house, and the 4 of us, the 5 of us, bathed her. We had sacred music playing. We were bathing her with oils, and we had cut the back of a nightgown up the back so we could slip it over her. And my girls came in when we were done, and they said they could not believe how her face had softened, that she really looked so peaceful. And that was just beautiful. Around midnight they came and they brought her home. They brought her home. They brought her to the mortuary, and we left shortly after that. So it was extremely helpful that, she had expressed her wishes. The family was pretty much on board, and she passed peacefully in her own bed. So, all right, I am okay. Said that, I said that. Okay. So my role as a life passages doula is to support the client and their family in having a peaceful death. If most people want a peaceful death, but it has to be planned. It can't be a spur of the moment thing because towards the end of transition, a lot of times emotions get very intense and people can say, I can't take this, we have to go to the hospital. So if you are prepared for this transition, you can get through it and it will be peaceful, but it has to be planned. And that's why you want your advance directive and you want your pulse form and you want to make sure your family's on board. So, as a life passages doula, when I get to meet the client, I find out what their understanding is of their illness. Do they have any immediate concerns? Is their pain under control if pain is present? Are there any safety concerns? And what support systems are in place for the family? That is very important. It's very easy to burn out if your family is doing 24-hour care and they don't have any respite, they don't have any support. Hospice is wonderful, but hospice is not there 24 hours a day. Hospice comes in, they teach you what you need to do, and then it's call me if you have a problem. So you're there by yourself. So that is my role. I make sure the patient, the client knows that they are in control. If there are people they don't want to see, we make sure there's a gatekeeper. If there's people they want to see, we encourage that. If they have regrets, we try to work on a lot of forgiveness and mending relationships. Life is so short, actually, when you look at the whole span of human history, that it really is important to get a handle on the ending so that you go peacefully. And it's so rewarding to see that. So I also want to say that many people avoid hospice until an hour before death, which is really unfortunate. But if you can at least accept palliative care begins the support of the family, and you can have your doctor visits at home. They usually have a nurse, a chaplain, physical therapy if needed. So there are so many support systems that become available that it's really a wonderful thing. And then it's also easy to transition from palliative care into hospice. So that ends my discussion. So I'll turn it over to Janet. Janet, you're
I just want to say that, it's incredible. Just in that story, there are so many pillars of wisdom that we can gain and gather from that. One of the first things is opening the discussion, right? Beforehand, if possible. And then the other important part of that is getting the family on board so that there isn't that last minute. There still may be that last minute struggle as people, deal with the impending death of someone that they love. I'm not saying that that's definitely part of the grief process, but if you have it worked out ahead of time, it's much more gentle, not only on the person who's going through the end of life process, but also for the family members and the loved ones and the friends. And I know that there have been many people here who have walked that journey with people, at their dying and at their death. And I just want to acknowledge that. I mean, we're dealing with a group of people here that are very wise, that have done it, that have worked with it. And I just want to share a couple of stories from my perspective, and then start a discussion about these important pillars of support that we need to have and how we can actively create them. So when I was heard about Donna's experience, I just thought that just embodied so many different things. And one of the things that happened years ago when I was working at the Center for Living with Dying is we got a call from a nurse at an ICU. And she said, Janet, she goes, my patient's trying to die, but the family members are trying to get her to continue to live. And so she said, I can see the conflict. And so she said, would you talk with the family members? And I said, absolutely. And so her primary family member was her husband. And so I had met with him outside the hospital room, and I'd said, hi, I'm Janet, from the center, and I'm just here to find out, how is it for you? Because I can't tell you how many times I hear when you've got a person going through an illness, or a person going through, potentially a dying process, or a person going through a difficulty, and the family members and friends and loved ones never get asked how they're doing. It's always, how is your loved one that is ill? Mm-hmm. So it's very rare that family members get a chance, or friends, or, partners, or loves, get a chance to find out and be able to express, how is it for you? So I said, and it was ironic because my mother's name is Alice and my father's name was Ralph. And if anyone's old enough to remember the Honeymooners, okay, Ralph and Alice, and that was the name of this couple. And I just shared with him after we were through with our conversation. I said, you have the same name as my parents, so I feel very special being present for you. And so I said to Ralph, I said, how is it going to be, for you? And I know, and he goes, well, Janet, I just have to let you know, I've told my wife it's okay to die. I told her it's okay to die. I told her it's okay to die. And I said, wow. I said, that's a real gift. I said, well, what happens? And he says, well, I tell her and then I leave the room. I said, okay. I said, can you tell me how you tell her? I said, can we go in together and, see how you tell her, and maybe I can be a support. And so he goes, okay. So he grabs my hand and he, pulls me down. And he goes right up to the side of the bed. I said, you're doing it right, Ralph. Going to the side of the bed, not talking from the foot of the bed, we went right up to the side. And he said, Alice, it's okay. You can die. It's okay. I give you permission. I don't know what I'm going to do without you. I don't know how I'm going to survive. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how I'm going to cope. And I said, okay. I said, Ralph, can we go outside for a moment? Okay, can we go outside? So we went outside and I said, Ralph, I said, I hear you saying those beautiful words, but let's take a moment to acknowledge how this is for you. So I said, how is it for you? What is your scariest part? What's your worst fear? And he said, I just have loved her for over 50 years, and she is just the love of my life, and I just don't know how I'm going to survive. And I said, well, what's the scariest? He said, not having her here. And I said, yeah, that's really hard. That's a big loss. And then he said, how am I going to, I'm the one that cooked in the family, but how am I going to do the dishes? How am I going to, she was the one that did the bills in the family. How am I going to do the bills? And so we talked about it. Fear by fear. Does everyone get what I'm talking about? It's like letting him get out from the inside to the outside. And we often have a thing at the Center for Living with Dying. You acknowledge it, you express it, you identify a need, and then you do an action step, and then you reconnect with what's good. And so we were there for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, while he explained all the scarities, we called them, all the scarities, what he was scared about. And then the more he was able to address them, I said, can we get more help with this? He said, yeah. Again, going back to Donna's principles, getting more support. And I said, absolutely. We can get some more support. I said, who can you call upon to help you with some of these things? And he said, I realize I've been kind of locking my children out because I felt like I was the one that needed to take care of Alice. I'm not sure what happened there. Okay. Did everyone hear that little? Okay. So I said, it sounds like you're ready to maybe invite some help in. And he said, absolutely right. I am willing. I really would like to do that. And so, I said, okay. So we took it task by task, worry by worry, fear by fear. And we kind of started working out. And as he got more relaxed and more calm, he said, I think I will be able to survive. But he said, I really couldn't see this. And he said, even though I was giving my wife permission, because that's what my heart wanted to do, he said the rest of me didn't want to give her permission. So we talked about that. It's hard. It's hard letting go of people you love. It's so hard. And as Donna mentioned before, sometimes there's some unfinished business, what we call unfinished business in the olden days. That's what we would call it. Some healing that needs to happen, some resolution that needs to occur before peaceful death and peaceful grieving people can happen. And so we talked about that. And he said, we've said all that we need to say to each other. He said, I feel pretty good about the two of us. So I said, well, let's go back in, Ralph, and let's just talk to Alice again. And so we went to Alice by her bedside, and he approached, and he was much calmer. And he said, Alice, I love you. I love you so much, and I am so grateful for the time we have had together. And I'm sorry that I was so scared, before. But he said, I'm going to be okay. I've got a plan, and I'm going to be okay. And I think the most loving thing I can do for you is to give you real permission to die and to be out of the pain and suffering you've been in, and just to go to heaven, and just to be with all of your people that are waiting for you, and I know they are, and I'll be fine here. But our love will never die. Our love will never die. Isn't that incredible? And so just the power, of him saying that to her, and she completely calmed down. Her agitation went away. He held her hand. And then he came out, spent a little more time with me. He went back in and held her hand, and she died peacefully less than an hour later. So they both got their wishes. And the reason I share that story is because it taught me a powerful lesson about the need to take care of family members and loved ones, and to give them their chance to express and acknowledge how hard it is, to give them a chance to work out a plan where they can be taken care of. Because we become so hyper-focused on the person that is seriously ill or dying, that becomes our whole focus, and we don't often take the time to take a breath. And what it allowed Alice to do was to leave peacefully, knowing that she was loved and that love would never die. So the power of that, my friends, when Donna talks about the ability, to have a peaceful death, the ability to do this, it really takes some planning. And I want to also talk about children and youth because they often get left out of that whole process. Adults think it's an adult thing, we have to take care of it. And I can't tell you how many times in our Healing Heart grief group where we have heard, and that's our grief group for children, and we have the littles, the middles, and the teens. And all of them, unless their death was sudden and they didn't have a chance to prepare, just about everybody in every age group said, I wanted to be more involved. I wanted to know more. I wanted to be by my family. And so I want to share with you another story. I wanted to do something. They wanted to do an action step. They wanted to be a part of it. And they wanted to be told the truth. Does that make sense? They wanted to be told the truth. And that was one of the biggest heartbreaks for them. They were not told the truth. And they were not allowed to be a part of it. And I can remember when my father died suddenly of a massive heart attack. And my mother was calling, do you remember the olden days with the phone? Right? And that's how she was notifying people on the East Coast. And she let me come up. And whenever she was delivering the death notification, she let me hold her. And I can't tell you what it was like as a young 12-year-old to be able to hold my mommy as she was giving the news to our relatives. I got to hold her. So she allowed me to give something, and that actually gave me a sense of being a useful part of it, not just sitting by and not being able to do anything. I'll never forget being able to hold her, and she would let me do that, right? And so the reason I share these particular moments is that it gives us a chance to truly, explore, how we can include the whole community. And I mean, I just have to say, several of you on this call, created such healing for our wonderful April Lucier, our Reverend April Lucier. I mean, I'm just looking around and, at folks. I'm kind of narrowing in on you, Chris, because we spent, time. And I mean, it was just, the calmness, the beauty, as hard as it was and as complicated as it was, there was a strain of love that flowed through that moment because we all showed up. And I'm telling you, my friends, it's scary to show up. Even after all these years of doing this, it's still scary when I have to show up for my own people that I love, when I have to show up in my vulnerability, in my, in my open-hearted state. So I really want you to hear this. It's not because I've done this a lot in my life. It does not make it any easier. And it does not make the grief any easier. And it doesn't make the scary any easier. But when we come with an open heart, and so I have to share with you, as many of you who've gone through any of my classes will know, that I make you do a circle of meaning. Does anyone remember the circle of meaning? Okay, it's where I have you put everything and everyone that gives you, life meaning. And I had done this with a group of firefighters. And I said, so put down all the people, two-legged and four-legged, by the way, people and pets, all your activities, all your hopes and dreams, all your beliefs, and all of your possessions. Everything and everyone that gives you life meaning. And as you write it down, even though you know it in your head, as you write it down, it just creates, this wonderful thing. And so one of the firefighters from that class called and said, I need to do a circle of meaning for my friends. And I said, well, what's happening with your friend? He said, I have a firefighter who is very ill, very seriously ill and dying. And so he said, something happened to me, Janet, when I took this home, and I actually did it with my whole family. We made a family circle of meaning. And I said, that's brilliant. And I said, what happened in the family circle of meaning? He said, my youngest son, I think he had 4 children, who was like 5 years old, wrote in the circle, dinners with the family. Dinners with the family. He said, I had no idea that that was that important to him. Dinners with the family. And I said, that's amazing. And he said, that's why I think we need to go to this other family and help them do a circle of meaning. And so we had a session with the whole family, including the very ill dad. And I asked them, each of them, I said, what do you need in going through this process? And we actually did a little circle of meaning. And do you know what one of the youngest, again in this family, said? Do you know what I need, Janet? I said, what do you need? He said, I need a day alone with my daddy. I said, a day alone with your daddy? And he said, yes. He said, we've been so busy and daddy's going through so much and I need a day alone with my daddy. I need a daddy date. And I looked at him and I said, you are brilliant. He said, I need a daddy date. And so I went down and I said, and I asked the rest of the family, I said, would that be okay with everyone? And I looked at Dad and I said, could we have a daddy date with Jose? Could we have a daddy date? And Jose Sr. said, I would love to have a daddy date. And he was pretty ill at this point. And so Jose Jr. arranged a little tea party for his daddy. He brought his daddy in the wheelchair to the little tea party. And then he said, okay, Daddy. He said, let's go out and I'm going to show you how he shot in his little basketball. He said, I'm getting better at basketball, Daddy. And he goes, oh, he says, you're looking tired, Daddy. So he said, let's go back in. He said, I'm going to read you a story. And I'm going to, put you in bed and read you a story. And he said, I've got my daddy date. So then the rest of the family said, we all need daddy dates. We need time alone with our daddy. And taken from this wonderful 6-year-old who said he needed a daddy date. And the reason I bring that up is that's something we can help the family identify. It's like, do you need time alone? And do different family members need time alone to have a daddy date, right? And my friends, as we're talking about this, I'm not, trying to, make everybody sad. But what I am trying to say or trying to express is that when we spend time really taking a look at what's going on in the present moment, and that's another thing I want to say about it. We can plan and do everything that Donna talked about, making sure the person's pain-free and they're comfortable and they're where they want to be. Do they want to be indoors? Do they want to be outdoors? Who do they want to visit? What kind of music do they want to be playing, if anything? What would they like? I had one client that actually said, Janet, I need to see just an episode of Jerry Springer. I said, oh, okay. And I never would have thought that, but he said, I think I just need to laugh for a minute. He said, everybody's been so serious and so loving, and so, he said, I just need to see, something raunchy like Jerry Springer. And I said, hey, that works perfectly, But it's all about, planning, but it's all about being in the present moment with what you need and with what that other person might need. So we can have all kinds of plans, but then bring it to the present moment. What works for you right now? And as we get nearer to death, sometimes it's the simplest things, like comfort care, like having our mouth, swabbed out so that we're not uncomfortable, or just having just the right amount of covers, or whatever it happens to be. but to be in that present moment. What is it that we need right now? Does that make sense? Yeah. So we're going to just spend some time. Donna and I both are going to ask you some questions and have you participate. Because the other thing that's important is after death, what we do with our grieving rituals are very important. In many, incredible traditions from around the world, there are specific grief practices that you do to create a structure around you. Sitting Shiva is one. Shiva is in the Jewish tradition, where for 7 days you don't worry about anything in the worldly way. So you literally, mirrors are covered, and if you do it right, you're taken care of by the community for that 7 days, and you just have a chance to grieve. You don't bathe, you don't put on makeup, you don't change your clothes. You just are allowed to grieve and share memories. Isn't that beautiful? To just have that. And I mean, I'm doing a terrible job of describing it, but what it does is sitting Shiva is just it's just a fantastic way of honoring that grieving family. And it gives us a structured way as friends and loved ones to be able to reach out and do something really specific. So we knew what to do. I had a beautiful Midwestern volunteer that said, okay, after the death, it's what she calls casserole time. It's casserole time. And be a good time where you find out and know what that family likes in terms of a casserole. I thought, otherwise you're going to have 1,000, macaroni and cheese or tuna noodle casserole, and maybe they don't even like that. So finding out what it is they like. I know there was one person that said, I just want some chitlins and grits, right? That's what my family likes. And so being able to identify, the unique and individual as well as the universal, things. One young woman that I worked with many years ago, and her favorite thing, she was diabetic along with many other issues, and she was dying as a result of cancer. But she said, Janet, does anyone remember Cheetos? The old Cheetos? And she says, I want Cheetos and root beer, because now I'm going to eat all the Cheetos and root beer I can have, because I never got to have that when I was well and trying to get myself healthy. So it's really getting down to that moment by moment decision. And needs might change. We might change. And getting people to help, so that we're not doing it by ourselves. And for many of us who have officiated at memorial services or funerals, know that, in that moment, we have to find out what are the changing needs of the family and friends. I just one recently that I officiated, we had a situation where there was a dad and his daughter and several friends, and this woman had worked on a community garden. So she had several friends that wanted to be a part of it and wanted to bring in the community garden into it. And so working with the family, working with the friends, and the family, both the husband and the daughter, were extremely introverted, right? So they needed us to hold the energy for these friends that wanted to do a walk down to the garden and a ceremonial, acknowledgement. And so let's talk about all of that, my friends. And we're going to start off, if it's okay with you, we're going to start off with, by the way, before I start off, was this helpful? Because I'm probably preaching to the choir on this one, because many of you know this already. Yes, Chris.
It's more than helpful. It's extraordinary and exquisite. I feel like I'm in the middle of a masterclass with with peers of great renown, everyone
Wow.
here, the people who are here now and those who will come after to watch, the people for whom this topic resonates, I truly believe are extraordinary. And there's, I don't know if you use these words exactly, but there's a tremendous emotional courage on the part of the attendant,
Yes.
if I could use that word. Um, I think that person, if you're in a professional capacity as opposed to a family capacity, that person has to really have their ducks in a row, and to be able to serve whoever is passing in the family, because
Absolutely.
it's their time.
Yeah.
It's their time. And so whatever ideas that we have, or all those kinds of things, those need to be left, if not at home, perhaps in the car, waiting to be spoken if necessary. But there's, how do I serve? And I don't consider myself a morbid person whatsoever, but I'm deeply passionate about end of life.
Yeah.
Not because I'm good at it, but I know my heart is deeply passionate about it. And so listening to you guys talk about this in real tangible terms and not sugarcoating, but all the different stories you've told. And one of the things I did want to say is the husband that you mentioned, Janet, perhaps his name is Ralph, to hear about his deep transformation,
Yeah.
and how that needed to happen, and how it was facilitated, and how it did come about, and how his transformation facilitated the transformation of his wife. And to me, I like to use the term the drama of human existence. And it's just it's profound. And I want to thank you so much for your presentation so far, and how else we're going to spend the evening.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Reverend Joyce. Joyce C.
Actually, it was Patty this time.
Oh, thank you, Patty. Go right ahead, my dear.
I just wanted to say how important the topic and conversation is, and especially now. And for me, it's just a beautiful how the two of you presented it. It's such a beautiful way to see two people that we know be able to work with the people that they do. And I learned from that. And I think that it will certainly help me, probably others, be able to be of better assistance to those who are passing on, because I flounder in that. It's like, wow, what do you say? How do you do it? I mean, it's not easy. And then it's the passage every human being on this planet is going to have to go through that. Our life is going to end at some point. And I think that as a society, we don't talk about it. Some cultures, that's how they're raised. They're born and they're raised that this is, a temporary situation, and the passing will be beautiful. But we don't have that in this culture. So I find it really helpful to hear you, and I look forward to learning more from you. Because I know as just a caring human being, I want to be better at being there for people. It's real important to me. So thank you very much for both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to start by asking you, my friends, let us know what you've done about durable power of attorney for health care. Have you done the pulse? Let's hear how that has been for you, or what's been your experience.
Well, I'll be happy to share. First of all, I have a cremation package, and it includes that if I'm on a trip, wherever I am, I can be cremated there and the ashes sent home. And I take this with me on all my trips. Not that I anticipate dying on them, but I want to be sure that whoever I'm traveling with knows what to do. Because after all, I am 90, and even though I'm in fairly good health for being 90, anything can happen. And I want to be sure that the person traveling with me knows that that's what they need to do. And the other comment I want to make is that with my mom and my friend Nancy, I was with them periodically, and I would go prepared to be with them and help them, talk to them about, life and things and remembrance and all that. With Earl was sick for 8 years, and he was an enormous amount of care. And I didn't have those, I didn't set up those coffee dates or lunches to discuss, to remember and to discuss the future with him as much as I feel that I should have. We did that on occasion, but I've recently, and he's been gone 5.5 years now, but I've recently realized that I should have done that a lot more. That I feel that I should have done that a lot more than I did. And after he was gone, I realized that every 15 minutes I was going, is he okay? What does he need? I was so into his care and attuned to his care that I didn't always think about things beyond his care. The one other thing I want to tell you, when my friend Nancy died, she had a terrible time leaving. And my grandson Jeremy has assisted several people, including Earl, in crossing over. So he went to talk to her. And she said, I can't leave. I have to stay here and help my kids. So he went to each of the kids and said, go and tell her you're going to be okay if she leaves. When she leaves, you'll be okay. And once that circle was completed, she gave her last breath and went on.
Yeah.
So that was a message that I think we need to give to get our families to understand that they're going to be okay, making the plan of what they need, Janet,
Yeah.
and how they're going to be okay. Once you're gone, once I'm gone, I want them to be okay.
Yeah.
And it's so important to have a trust, to have your money figured out, to have the executor figured out so that you know who's going to take care of your money and it doesn't dissolve into a family squabble. And I have all that in place and have had for years. When Earl transitioned, or when Earl passed away, that transition was seamless. It was just, it was easy, very, very easy. And I encourage you to take care of that immediately. Now, Nancy fooled around and fooled around, and guess when she got her trust finally signed? About 30 days before she passed away. And I just had a fit over it. And I tried to get her to do it 2 years ahead of time. Oh, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. And so it's so important to take care of those details, folks.
Yeah.
I want to mention, thank you, Joan. That was
Yes.
a nice story. But I want to mention we do have some younger folks here, and in my training, we were advised that people over 50 should have their advance directive in place. So if you're under the age of 50, we feel it's not as important. But your parents, you can ask your parents, if they have their wishes documented so that you can assist them in preparing for a peaceful transition. So I just wanted to mention that. Annie?
Janet, you're on mute.
Thank you. I know, I was trying to. Annie, I would just like to add to that, though, before Annie speaks for a moment, and that is, I wished when I was younger, I knew what I knew now. And I'm going to say it doesn't matter if we're young or old. If we need to be prepared and we need to have that preparation in a way so that our loved ones are not suffering in agony after we die. And that's just my perspective. Annie, please go ahead.
When I first retired in 2023, it was highly suggested to me by my family and by my, that I get my trust and advance directive done. And I do have to say that it was difficult because I'm not ready to go anywhere. And,
Yeah.
I'm not ready to go. But
Yeah.
I did get a trust done. You guys are going to laugh, but my trust is named Yes Mama, because that's been my nickname for over 30 years. So it's like, why not the Yes Mama Trust? I have, power of attorney. I've got my son in place and my brother and my sister after him. So in case anything happens to Rob and he predeceases me, then, I've got coverage after that. And if my sister goes and my brother goes and my niece, Victoria, and my nephew, Kyle, are in line as well. It was one of the scariest things that I ever did because in my mindset, forgetting about my minister mind and my training that I've had with you and throughout the years, it just said to me, I'm writing my death certificate.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
And then I was diagnosed at the end of 2023 with cancer.
Yeah.
And it's not my
Yeah.
cancer. It doesn't belong to
No.
me.
No.
The universe can have it back. It's not mine. I refuse to own it. So everything that I did seemed to be more towards that, but I had to move that away just because I'm not planning on going anywhere. I don't believe that this is my epitaph. It's not
Yeah.
time for me to go. So I do have, also my advance directive done. Donna, maybe while you're here, we can take a look at everything and make sure we're all in order. I've started to make a list of music and so on. But I've also paid for, when I'm gone, I signed up with a company called Earth Funerals, and I have a travel authority with them that they will pick me up wherever I am. I would rather be at home. We have to find a place to put that in my advance directive. I just and that they are going to they do a process that it's not cremation. You become part of the earth.
That's right.
They turn you into dirt. And so I can go and be planted with any ecological type of a place. I can get put in Mount Shasta. I can get put at the beach. I can be put anywhere where there are plants planted. Where I can be part of somebody's garden, and I can be feeding the earth. And so it's all paid for. It's all ready to go. And I have little cards that I can give to the family that they know who to call if they find me. And I've stopped looking at this as my death path. I've started looking at it as I'm not going anywhere, but just in case it's there. So had
I
to find
love
a
that.
different way to look at it. And when I helped my friend Kathy pass into the light with her back in 2002, it was one of the most amazing and miraculous moments of my life where I had angels visit me. They walked me through undoing our psychic hooks that we had within one another so that she could, be ready to travel on. I not only gave her permission, but I didn't know to do this, Janet, but I said to her, I got money in the bank. I've got enough to pay our bills. We don't have to worry about, I've still got my job. There's life insurance. I'm going to get a life insurance policy to pay for all the things that we need. You don't have to worry. Your parents are not going to make it here in time to see you before you pass. it's okay to let go.
Yeah.
And I'm not alone. She didn't want me to be alone. I wasn't
Yeah.
alone. There's people in the room with me. And so she was able to let go. And so my mother said, I want you with me when I pass.
Oh.
So one of the hardest things that I had, my mom passed in December of 2020. My sister-in-law, God bless her, she was there with her all the way through. And I kept saying to my mom, do you want, that's why I kept going to Oregon before I came and moved here, was I wanted to be there when she passed, but she just wasn't ready yet. So she just said, just go home. So, we talked like a couple of times a week during the time period that she was ill and she was getting ready to make her transition. And I know that she wanted me there, but she called me one day and she said, okay, I'm ready to go. Larry left a couple of months ago. In fact, he passed away on my birthday in 2020. So happy rebirthday, Pop. And she said, I feel him tapping me on the shoulder all the time. I can feel that it's time. I'm ready to let go. I don't want you to call me anymore. I don't want to hear from you anymore. And I said, well, do you want me to call you every day and tell you I love you? She said, I already know you love me. We've said all of our sorries. We've said all of our, goodbyes. It's going to be okay. It's time for me to let go. And she said, let your cousins know, but I don't want them to call me either. And so, I let my cousins know and I said, hey, I have a feeling it's going to be any time now. And 10 minutes later, I had a phone call. She was gone. So she was able to go in the way that she wanted as well. So I know that I did everything that I could, but I just know that this thing that's called cancer that wants to hang on is going away, and I'm kicking its butt out of my life, and I'm going to be here for a lot longer. So, but I'll be ready. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Annie. And I just want to acknowledge a couple of things you said that were so powerful. And one, that must have been incredibly hard to hear from your mom, even though on an intellectual level, you knew that's probably a good thing. But emotionally, my goodness, I mean, to hear you don't want me to even call and say I love you, right?
I agree.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's absolutely. I really believe, and I know Donna will agree with me, we want to hear all of it. And I'm going to go back to what Chris had said earlier. It takes great courage for all of you who are on this call to be here. And I just really want to honor you all for your courage because, Donna and I came in like gangbusters. I mean, we didn't we didn't prettify it in any way, but this is what's real because by living to the fullest, then we can die in a peaceful way, potentially, right? And so I just want to thank you, Annie, and thank you for honoring, how hard it is. This is not easy. And you are kicking cancer's butt. And I send that energy to you every day, every day. And, so, I mean, just know that, this is where we are right now. And right now, you are alive, kicking cancer's butt. So thank you. And that's very difficult. And so that's why it's so important that we all have support. Anybody else? Have you had, durable power of attorneys for healthcare? Have you had filled out 5 wishes? Corky, did you have something?
Well,
Yeah.
it's just that, my mother outlived 5 husbands and my grandmother outlived, well, several husbands and then she died. And then, and my brother uncle, his first wife was killed in a car accident. And it's interesting that with all this happening, I mean, I was there when my mother's next to the last husband died because we were getting in the car, getting ready to go on a trip, and he just died before he got the car started. He kind of reached for
Wow.
and he just died. And that was anyway, so it was but the and he was taken to El Camino. We were living in Santa Clara, but he was taken to El Camino. And my mother gave me her telephone book and her coin purse and said, start calling people. So here I am at the uh and so it's and then we traveled to different places where my mother's husbands would die. So it's kind of weird, but it was well, the thing that I wanted to do is to be of service to my mom so that she could die in peace. And
Absolutely.
but she was kind of independent. So, but I think she was happy when I would be there. But she was in San Francisco, and I'd go up every couple of days to make sure she turned off the stove. It's just being an only child is has is just a responsibility.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, it either is or it isn't, and I chose to be there, but in a kind of a passive aggressive way too. So the experience that I'm going through now, I definitely want to be, with Dottie, I definitely want to be present. And
Yeah.
I mean, there's no guarantee that I won't die before she does, but I don't know. We'll see. Well,
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. And so it's just being a caretaker is kind of a full-time job, and
Are
that's
you,
fine.
do you have
I love
It
support?
absolutely is a full-time job.
um,
Absolutely is a full-time job.
And Corky, my concern would be, do you have enough support and are you getting
Yeah.
some respite?
I think so. I think so. There's times that she feels okay during the day that I can go out and get a coffee, pick up a lottery ticket or do something like that. But it's basically I'm the one that's saying I don't want to leave her for very long. I mean, that's my
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah.
That's not her request. That's my kind of my promise.
Yeah.
So, and we laugh and have and every day, so that's kind of, fortunately, I'm kind of, I prefer to be happy. So that's kind of my bent, it's
Mhm.
so I like to tell her stories and read to her, and we listen to books on tape. And I mean, that's what happened this morning. We didn't get to sleep until 5 because we were listening to a book on tape all night. And we wake up and go, oh, got to rewind. Oh, and this is where we were, and then listen to that, and then fall back to sleep, and then so it's but we're in it together. So
Yeah.
it's but with my mom, it was like that. But she didn't want me to live with her. Thank goodness,
Mhm.
because I didn't, I didn't want to. But it's and then I brought her out here, like she was in the Midwest or something, from San Francisco to Campbell, and that was I just sometimes I just wish I'd been more present, but I couldn't be, so
Yeah.
it's hard.
It's a hard balancing act, isn't it, Corky?
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's
But
a
I didn't know
hard
anything.
balancing act.
But I didn't know anything about, the what do you do with your, to set yourself up if all the paperwork and stuff, that
Right.
we're talking about. Dottie's taking care of that, and so it's and we probably need to review it because I don't know how recent she's updated it because some people have died since then. So I don't know. Maybe we
Yeah.
need to review it.
I know I've had to update mine,
People keep
Corky.
dying,
Yeah. No, you're right. Absolutely. I mean, it's different than it was even 5 years ago.
Don't they know they had a responsibility?
Didn't they
Anyway.
know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
didn't they know? Yeah, so anyway,
exactly.
maybe we should remember when we did that over at the center, right? Remember we all got together and Chris was part of that,
Yep,
doing the all
yep.
day
It was
talk on
beautiful.
Saturday, and
Yeah,
here's the paperwork and we'll help you fill it out and that kind of stuff. I don't know. Anyway, it's it's just you either have a relationship with death or you don't. But I've had people dying all the time,
yeah,
so it's okay. It makes it very in your face that this is something we all have to go through.
yeah.
It's
There'll be a big crowd to greet you.
just that'd be nice. Yeah.
Well, and also I want to honor Corky how you talked about two things simultaneously that I really want to underline. And one is we've got to be in the present moment because that constantly is changing. What people might want, what you might need and want will change moment by moment. But then if we have a structure of a bigger plan, then at least that's something that our grieving people can hang their hat on. It can help them in the process. That's one less thing they have to plan. So it's like we have it planned, but we can change it. Like I had always, in mind put down, I wanted to be cremated and I wanted my ashes. And now that I've heard about green burial and I've heard about the dirt that you're talking about, Annie, I'm thinking about changing you know, and then I also talked to a physician friend of mine and he said, Janet, you've had a lot of things wrong with you. You'd make a great, you know, medical. And I thought, yeah, I could donate
Cadaver.
my
Yeah, yay.
cadaver, right?
A
Janet
And
the cadaver.
specimen, a great
a
specimen.
specimen, right? Exactly. And I thought, you're right, so I might do that. And so, I'm just saying that, just having these talks about it help us to see where we're at right
Good.
now. And if you change, it's okay. You
I
know,
mean, even if you're part of an experiment, I mean, even if you donate your body to science, they still have to get rid of the body sometime, don't they? Do they?
well, they do it.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember when Donald died, and I mean, we had just come back from the funeral or from the doctor. I don't know. There was a lot of people at the house, and she got a call about they wanted his cornea, his eye, in his eye. So it must have been right after we came back from the hospital and after he died, and the family had started gathering. Yeah.
So those are two different things. I thank you, Corky, for bringing that up. One is I donate my body to science. And of course, I have on my thing anything you can
Yeah, the
use,
little
take it, the little
pink
thing.
dot or
But
whatever.
those are two different things.
Oh,
So,
really?
yeah, oh yeah, they're two different things. So I can donate organs or parts of my body, to, be a donation. And I have that on my license. However, it's another thing to say I'll have my entire body dedicated or donated to science, right? As a cadaver. So if I do that, I mean, I hate to be blunt, but there's not going to be any body parts because it's
Well,
going to be
yeah, I can
No,
helping
remember.
medical students and
I can remember
helping,
taking anatomy and physiology, and we were,
right,
always pulling on the toes. Anyway, that was. I mean, I was a PE major, and you have to take
right.
anatomy and physiology, and it's a lot different than having a PE major playing with a body than a doctor. Somebody that wants to be a doctor. Different and different,
Right.
interested in different parts, I guess.
I mean,
Yeah.
Lauren, am I right?
I
Lauren, am I
never got
right?
a cadaver. The local JC, or they got it, but the fancy schmancy school I was at, we never got a cadaver. It's frustrating.
Wow.
My understanding is that when you donate your body to a medical school for research, they will, once they're finished, they will contact the family regarding the wishes. So
So it
they
can be
don't
either
just,
way. Yeah.
yeah, they
They
don't
don't just,
just toss you in the trash.
okay.
The
So
important
that's,
thing is you really, really, really have to make these plans ahead. You
yeah,
can't, like, oh,
exactly.
somebody died this morning, what do I do with the body?
Right.
And you have family members making decisions when they're emotionally distraught.
Mhm.
Right.
And I
Right.
don't, I don't care how long people have been sick or how sudden it is. You're emotionally distraught, and it's
Exactly.
a disaster to make critical decisions like that at that
Yes.
particular time.
You know, Dot,
And that's why I have mine, on my license, and everybody who knows me, that's the way it is.
well,
Right?
Dottie's mom, Eleanor,
Mm.
she always wanted her body given to science or whatever. She always had that little pink dot. And but in where she was in Freedom, or where, back there in Watsonville, um, that they said, no, we're not a donation hospital. We can't take
Right.
organs. We
Right.
can't do that.
Yeah.
So the one thing that she was really, really wanted to do was to donate her body, because she'd
Yeah.
had polio and stuff like that, and she kind of
Right.
felt like maybe that would be it, of
Yeah.
importance. And so, we were really just kind of a little bit distraught that she didn't get the opportunity to have that, because that was really going to be part of her legacy.
Exactly. Chris, you've been patiently.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say a couple things, going back to the original question about do we have an advanced directive? And there's, I think, 3 things I want to say. 4. I really like 5 wishes. And if you don't know 5 wishes, find out, contact me, contact
Yes.
Janet. It's based on, shall we call it, the compassion of Mother Teresa?
Yeah.
It's not religious in and of itself, but it's a very compassionate document that covers both the legal and the emotional before and after.
And the spiritual. Yeah.
Spiritual. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Beautiful.
and so a couple of points. One is, when I was writing mine, and I made lots of, it's only like 4 pages, and mine has 12 pages of notes. But when I was answering some of the questions, I got to say things in the privacy of my, with that question, what I really, really wanted, what was the most important thing to me. And you don't have to do that. There's questions that are pretty pointed that you can say yes, no, or maybe. But these questions were, for example, it might say, I want all those around me to make up and be friends. That's paraphrasing. And then I would write riff on that for 2 paragraphs.
Yeah.
But I was able to put some things down that I had never said to anyone, especially boundaries. There were some boundaries that I wanted to keep, and there were some things I wanted to say. And Donna mentioned earlier about guarding people from entering a room that the person doesn't want to have interaction with. So I've got that both on the physical level, and also for me, if you want to pray, go do it on your own time somewhere else. Do not pray over me. And that's my thing. And it kind of speaks to the religious aspect. So when you're doing that kind of a document, which covers the legal and the emotional and spiritual, there is a religious bent that you have an opportunity to put in there. And I really appreciated it, because it wasn't like following somebody else's religion. It was like, no, this is my relationship with the everything. And another thing about it is, I got all the way to the point of, I want music and I want this and that. And then, well, where does the body go? I don't know. I don't have any place special. I know that I want my little dog 1 and little dog 2 to be with me, and they're already in a box. But I have no idea. Even though I've been in this, I bought this house 26 years ago. You'd think I had an attachment to the ground, but it doesn't feel right. So that's an open item in mine, and I need to address it. I will. And just talking to people can help. Like, I know she didn't write it down, but this is what I think. And then the other thing is, I just want to mention a moment of dysfunctional family business. Many families are dysfunctional, and mine waves that flag pretty loudly. And so what I would say around sort of this larger death issue is, if I were not related to my mother, she would have had nothing to do with me. It's kind of the simple math of it. And I was an annoyance to her, including in the days that she was dying. And she had attendants around her, some of whom had been her care people for about 3 years. And she treated them like what a daughter might be treated like. And she loved them and this and that and the other. And so she was, I could see that was happening. And I had already resolved that years and years before. So I was like, well, good. She's got a daughter now, blah, blah, blah. And so I was able to kind of, I guess what I would say is I was able to do what I needed to do for me. She could care less. She didn't want me to be there. She was irritated when I was around. And I was there when she died. And what happened is I was sitting with her and I was holding her hand. And again, I think she hated me being there. I was holding her hand. And then I stood up and went into the kitchen to talk to the caregiver. And while I was speaking with the caregiver, I went back. I said, I think she's going. And the lady goes, no, it'll be a couple of hours. And I finally went back to her and she had gone. And when I asked my teacher about it, my teacher said, it was really good that you left because she wasn't going to leave. And I don't want to put any schmaltz on this at all. It's not because she liked me. Let's be very clear. My mother didn't care for me, but she wasn't going to leave with you there. And you had to leave in order for her to make her transition. And I accept that completely. And the one last thing I want to say about it is, while I spent the last 30 years understanding that when my mother and father died, I wanted to regret nothing. And I led my life in that way. And I was able to say, my dad went 6 months before my mom. For both of them, I regret nothing. And that was for me. And that was very, very powerful. However, I don't celebrate Mother's Day. Not yet. And it's been 8 years. 8 years and a month. And I don't celebrate Mother's Day. I'm still not there yet. And it's not so much that I'm angry with her. That's kind of not how it works. But I'm just, there are wounds. The nature of the dysfunction. There's a currency that my mother set up, a dysfunctional trust that I deal with in my life today. And the dysfunction is just weird. And so I'm not so much bothered by it anymore. I've sort of come to terms with it. And at the same time, I don't celebrate Mother's Day. And I check in every year. I go, nope, not this year. So I just want to say that for people for whom, it's not all roses and it's not all sweetness and light on their exit. And the last thing I want to say is I have a different practice where I paint a shield for events. And the shield that I painted after both my mom and my dad had passed, I painted a shield where it was looking into the forest, their forest. They have a forest. It was looking into their forest, and there was a stag, and it was a silhouette of a stag. So you couldn't see whether the stag was looking at the viewer or looking away from the viewer. But I painted it such that mom and dad were off, what is it called? Off stage. So mom and dad were not in the picture, not literally not in the frame. And there was this stag who was buffering me. And then that was my goodbye. So I had a visual art activity that I was able to do that I could really pour. I'm going to call it the wistfulness, because that's really what it was. I was able to pour the wistfulness of this is how it is, and cement that into another object, and that object holds that wistfulness. And it has relieved me of having to carry it. I can always revisit it, etc. But I was able to remove the energy out of my body and put it in the painting. And be proud of the painting. And I want to go back to that word courage, be proud of the emotional courage and the emotional stamina to be able to continue on in a weird dysfunctional family environment. So we all need love too.
So beautifully said, Chris. And thank you for taking care of yourself and giving us some wonderful clues and cues about how we can do that. I mean, it's like the field is wide open. So thank you for that. Lauren.
Going back to the pulse and the advanced directives, a really important thing is to also educate the people that are 50 years old and younger because they might be the DPOA. And not everyone knows, but the POA can reverse the person's like DNR or DNI. So just have that really frank discussion. Like most people don't know that CPR breaks ribs. And like, well, I can't punch you in the heart. How do you think it gets the heart to pump?
That's right.
So I definitely have those conversations with friends, still figuring out what to what level in the workplace to stay in my lane. But I remember being Mother's Day, I was there with Joan and Christine and Ruth, and we were in the middle of this restaurant, Mother's Day brunch. We ended up going way down the rabbit hole of advanced life directives and what you can opt in and opt out of, and it was really interesting. So just so everyone knows, what does each thing mean? And it is not like a Grey's Anatomy show. And
Right.
sometimes family members are traumatized if they're in the room at the time someone's being resuscitated, or they, go, no, do everything to save Mima, and then they're traumatized by what that all.
Right. Exactly right. It's incredibly traumatic, it's incredibly real, and it's incredibly violent.
I've never
right?
CPR, but I do know
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
book level, but someone who's actually done it knows higher level what a code really.
Yeah.
It's a little hard to hear Lauren's voice. Lauren, you have a very soft voice.
Well, it's
And
very muddy. It's very muddy sounding. It's like she's kind of, so
Underwater.
I can't understand what
Internet connection's kind of bad today. I don't know why it keeps telling me that.
oh,
Yeah.
okay. It's unstable.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
So
I think
I missed what Lauren
Okay.
had to add.
so. I'm going to say, Lauren, if you can hear me more clearly, what Lauren is addressing is that the act of CPR, while we think of it as being in a romantic, kind of movie theater way of, being able to save someone's life, it is actually incredibly violent. It's going to break your ribs. You're going to suffer a lot with CPR. And what Lauren has done is she's really educated people about this. And I think it's such a gift, Lauren, that you're giving, especially to our, younger generation about this, because it's not, you're not romanticizing it, you're saying how it really is. And as a person that has done CPR, it is incredibly hard. And I mean, we have it's just something to take into consideration, right? It
And
definitely is. Yes.
especially if
Thank you,
someone's
Lauren.
a DPOA, like let's say grandma is a DNR and the granddaughter is the DPOA. At the time that grandma is coding, they can say, no, do everything to save grandma. And legally, the team has to do everything to save grandma because they're medical decision maker legally. But
Unless they have a pulse form.
Right.
They have a pulse form signed by their physician. That is a physician's order not to do CPR, and they have to respect that.
Right.
there's so many loopholes to make sure that we're
Exactly. There are many cogs to the wheel that has to fit perfectly. Absolutely.
just a signed
Yeah.
DNR is different than a full pulse.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes. And that's a beautiful distinction both of you are making. All right, Reverend Joyce C. and Patty. I'm going to say both because I'm not sure
Who's going to talk?
who's going to talk.
Yeah, it's me again. And I just want to underline how important it is what Lauren is saying. It was a huge lesson for me. About a year ago or several months ago, my sister's care was turned over to me. And it was the first time that I was introduced to a pulse. I had no idea what it was about. And when I was given the task of having to decide what to do for her, I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm in a position to determine what's going to happen to her life. And it was a very difficult moment, really. And then a doctor told me what happens when they give CPR, because she had CPR several times before and they've done several things to keep her alive. And so when he told me exactly what Lauren was saying, it's like, I realized that I couldn't put her through that again. So it just made it easier. It makes it easier when we know the reality of what takes place when we're doing CPR. And, so thank you for that, Lauren. I just wanted to say thank you. Yeah.
Thing that got me
Absolutely.
was definitely, that you can maybe be resuscitated by CPR, but then they can't give you pain medication sometimes because that will depress your vitals to just die anyway.
Yeah.
Pretty terrible. Like,
Yeah.
need it. Oh, but no, we can't medicate you for your rib fracture. Seriously?
Janet, can you translate that?
We can't hear.
Yes.
Oh.
They can't medicate you for your rib fracture. So if they've saved you, what Lauren is saying is very profound. They can't give you any medication because now you're on the track of being saved rather than, my friends, being on the track of being compassionately cared for and
Yeah.
pain-free.
Yeah.
This is so important, what Lauren is bringing up.
Well,
Because if we don't have that opportunity, to have that set up ahead of time, and then we are now conscious and in misery and great deal of pain, and now we can't give you the pain medication that you need because we're on the track of saving your life, not compassionately letting you have pain-free or comfort care. Absolutely. Again, I saw Reverend Joyce C. and Patty raising hands.
yes. Well, first of all, this is the word fascinating is not to be misunderstood, but this is fascinating and as well as informative, everything. I want to share, and it's about my dad. The day he transitioned, it was in the evening. He walked in the kitchen and he wasn't okay. He had fallen, and so I told one of my siblings. They called and the ambulance came. And then in a short time, before they could get down there to this hospital in Santa Barbara, my father came to see me. And he walked up to me. I was standing in the kitchen crying because I felt it and I knew. And he told me, he said, everything's going to be okay, Joyce C. And then he said, well, then, everything's going to be okay. And he walked back through like a light wall to the hospital. And by the time they came home, they said that by the time they got there, he had left.
Wow.
And my father is still with me. He still visits. It's just a part of my life. It's never changed since 1972. It's just been a part of my life. But the reason why I'm letting you know this is that what he keeps telling me is to be me. He tells me, be yourself, be who you are. Don't go looking for something that you're not. We have nice little chats and things. But just remember, you're not alone. And he says, and I am here, Joyce C. I am here. And so I just want you to know that I am not alone. Outside of having my wonderful partner here, Patty, I have my dad. And what I've been hearing this evening has been absolutely incredible. And I am very thankful to everyone for sharing. And it helps you to get grounded. It helps me anyway, to get grounded into who I am and to be me. Don't go looking, just be me. And so that's what I practice every day. Just being me, I practice being Joyce C. because I know my dad get a kick out of it. I don't know why, he always did, so I just practice being Joyce C. And I just want to share that. Again, thank everyone for sharing. It's very informative. It helps you to get grounded, to stay focused, and to realize that we have choices and options, but it's important to do what we feel is correct and best for us. That's what I believe. And then let it go from there and just be good to yourself. And so I'm just working on that, just being good to Joyce C. But thank you
What
again, everyone.
what a beautiful example you are of that, Joyce C., and reminding us that we have our ancestors and angels right next to us, and that we can call upon that resource. That absolutely is something that cannot be underlined enough. So
No,
I thank you.
I thank everyone. It's been an incredible evening.
So Ms. Jeannie,
I don't know what our time is.
we are 7:38. We've got till 8 o'clock, my friend.
Oh, okay, great. Can you either Janet and or Donna talk about MAID, medical assistance in dying, and what your experience has been with that?
So I know very little about it legally, but I do know some stories about it. And depending upon the state where you're in, it's different. Um, so what does everyone understand what Jeannie is asking?
It's MAID is medical assistance in dying.
Right.
So it's where a physician will give you a prescription to end your life, but you have to meet certain criteria. For
Yes.
instance, in Oregon, you have to be a resident of Oregon for a certain amount of time. You have to be mentally competent. You have to have a terminal illness that is going to take your life within a certain amount of time. I believe it's 6 months.
6 months. Yeah.
So there are, it's very restricted. It's very restricted and it's fairly new and it's somewhat controversial, as you can imagine. I haven't had personal experience with it, but I know it is available for people.
Yeah. And it depends, like Oregon is different, slightly different than California, is slightly different than Washington. Not every state has this available in every form. So it really takes some examining. And the couple of experiences I've had with it are literally one where it actually was taking place because you have to administer your own medication. So no one else can give you the medication. Does that make sense?
That's correct.
Yeah. So no one else can give you the medication. So you have to be aware enough and able, to take the medication. And I just want to offer to everybody, it's different and it is evolving. It's an evolving process. So new laws, new addendums to the laws are being made. And I also want you to know that the two other cases where I know it's been explored and been set up, the person actually died before they ended up. Both times, the
Oh,
person died before they needed to do it. And
I had
so,
one friend whose son did it. He was dying of cancer and he threw a humongous party. And right after that, he took
yeah,
the medication, but he went out how he wanted to. He went
how we
out
wanted
how he
to.
wanted to.
Yeah. So that's beautiful because I mean, it gives us options, but there are also, real guidelines being put in place. And so, I want you, we have to really pay attention to how that is changing. And it is very controversial, and many doctors will not do it. They'll not be a part of it. So it's
And do you see a role for people like us?
I see a role for people like us, Jeannie, being that support person, being that life passages doula. That's what I see our role. So to be with the person we want to support as they make the decision, as they contemplate the decision, we give them the open space. I'm so glad you asked this question. We give them the open space to really discuss it. What people have told me that have considered it is that when they had the space to really explore it, what it would mean for them emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically, relationally with the people that they love, they were able to make some wonderful decisions like Donna's friend who was able to say, I'm going to throw a big party, right? I'm going to do this and do it my way. And they've also, it sometimes caused people to really reconsider. It was like a kind of a quick decision they made. And as we were able to talk with them about it, they realized that what they wanted was something maybe a little more broad, a little more gentle, and more involving other people in that process. So the key thing is what we can give them is this is so important, my friends. We can give them that sounding board. We can give them that unconditional loving regard and support and non-judgmental space to really be able to talk about all their fears and feelings and questions and struggles, because that is the way that we can give them awareness about what their own truth may be at any given moment in time. And again, realizing it might change. And it's okay. We don't have to have anything set in stone. I've seen like what Chris was talking about and what a couple of you were talking about when Donna was talking about the fact that, oh, I only want this person, I don't want this person. I've had people, nearing death say, Janet, I do need to see my brother that I hate because I do need to clean it up. And I want him to come to my bedside. And there was actually a story, I'll just really quickly share it, where I was at Alexian Brothers Hospital, now Regional Medical, now Valley Medical. And what happened was, this man said, I don't want my brother to come. He's trying to come from the Philippines. We had a fight. I don't want him here. I don't want him here. And as he got sicker, he said, I really do want him here. And so he should have died like 3 days before he actually did. The minute his brother came in from the plane, from the airport, came in and saw him, and they cleaned up their unfinished business, he died literally like 15 minutes later after they had shared their love for each other and their apologies and cleaning it up. So, I mean, it's always open to change.
Thank you, Janet.
Thank you. Oh, Chris, you've got your hand up.
You're
Chris, you're on
muted.
mute. You're on mute, honey.
Sorry. I wanted to say, because since generally we're all ministers and the audience here is fairly ministerial, that if we're walking into this role, which is the holder of the hands, the doula, whatever. I already mentioned that it's important for us not to bring our agenda, and that's
Yes.
true. But I think it's equally important for us to be able to say, I can't walk that one with you. And that's not to make anything wrong, but I think in my opinion, it's okay for me to say, let's just pretend, and I'm saying pretend, let's pretend that I don't think MAID or assisted suicide is a good thing. Let's just pretend that that's the case. There's nothing that says that I have to participate.
Exactly.
And the kinds of things that I can do is I can open a conversation. I can kind of tweak out a little bit. All right, what's going on? And then I can try to make recommendations or offer other kinds of support. Or perhaps what I do is I find the food people and make sure the food people are coming, and then help that person get the other kind of emotional and spiritual support. So I just wanted to pop that in.
Yes.
I don't believe that we're required to do anything that that's not in alignment with that larger fountain of our own willingness to support.
And absolutely, Chris, I just want to underline that 1,000 times, because if we're not coming from our true self and what we're comfortable with, then we're not going to be able to create that safe place for the other person. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't bear witness, and it doesn't mean that we can't get other people involved potentially that could hold that maybe in a different way. We can help people identify that. But you are so right. And so please, as ministers, as people that are helping every day, do not put that on yourself. Really do that deeper inner examining about what is okay. So, we've stolen, the saying, our center has stolen the saying from the Ugandan tradition, which says, I stand beside you. And what that statement means is I stand beside you in the fullness of who I am, but I may not be able to go with you where you need to go, but I stand beside you. Make a difference? So I hope that relieves the burden. We cannot fix it. We cannot necessarily change it. But what we can do is bring our loving, compassionate energy to it and create a safe place. And I feel like that's our goal. That's our purpose. And I'm so glad this came up. I'm so glad, Jeannie, you asked that question, because it's so important that we give ourselves that permission. Because as Joyce C. would say, that's being totally me. That's being totally me. And that honesty will free us up, will free us up to really be the presence we can be. And the other thing I want to say before I give it to Joyce C. and Patty is this. When we do this kind of work, I want you to hear it. I'm going to be really bossy about it. We need support for ourselves. We need to be able to come into community. We need to be able to debrief. We need to be able to support each other and to get support. When we're holding that energy, we need to get support for us as we hold that energy. Don't try to do it all by yourself. It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. And I think if any of our spiritual teachers that we have learned through the centuries have always taught us, it's the power of community. It's not one person doing it. It's the power of community. Reverend Joyce C.
Yes. I wanted to share very briefly about my mother. Her full name is Louise King Brown. I refer to her as King. When she transitioned in 1974, we were not on the good side from long time, And one day she came to me and I saw her and she asked me to forgive her. My mother was in this dark corridor of light where she had been in there for many, many, many years. And she asked me to forgive her. And I said to her, I already forgave you, King. I call her King. I do not call her mama or mother or any of that. I call her King because that is what she was in one lifetime. She was the king and my mother in another lifetime. So in this lifetime, I just call her King and said, I have already forgiven you. When she heard that, this amazing dark wall and corridor filled with light, and I watched her walk through into the light. But she had been in this other place for many, many, many years. And I just want to share the power of forgiveness is amazing. If you feel you can do it, please do. It is amazing. It's absolutely, because I had nothing to hold on to. We had been finished a long time. She was in this corridor. And I just wanted to share that I felt really good that I was able to support and to help King to move on into another stage of her life as a sort of non-physical being in the sense of the humanness, but as a soul to move on to another stage. And I just wanted to share that Forgiveness is an amazing teacher. Absolutely fabulous teacher. And for if you're holding on to things, take a good look at what are you holding on to and what are you getting out of it. Because I had nothing to gain, absolutely nothing, and I held on to nothing. And I don't to this day hold on. And so I just wanted to share the role that the forgiveness can play in our lives when we're dealing with not only ourselves, but our family or anyone that we know. And so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, that's beautiful,
Thank you.
Denise.
Beautiful. And I just want to offer, my friends, that forgiveness is a work that, I mean, I think we could have another speaker series on forgiveness, actually, on that process, but we do it for us. It's not necessarily, doing it out of obligation to another person. But what Joyce C is talking about is very, very powerful because it can be, and it also is something I believe cannot be rushed. So we can't do premature forgiveness until we're ready. And that's just Janet Child's perspective on it. And that's another place where, in a way, that we can help each other, that we can support each other. This is another way that we can offer that wonderful support and love to each other as we go through this human experience, of living and dying and forgiving and healing. This is where this wonderful community that we have at UCM is so amazing because it gives us the opportunity to help each other. We don't have to do it alone. We don't have to work it alone. And I mean, it's so important. I believe that we give ourselves first the permission to moment by moment do what we are able to do, moment by moment, honoring where we are, moment by moment, even though that might change. And I didn't get to read, Joni had put in a little text. I bet a lot of us, here have had an experience with cancer, have had an experience, which could be a death sentence, could not be a death sentence. Many of us have journeyed through, illnesses and challenges, right? And so it's in the sharing of that. It's in the moment where we come together and say, you know what? I maybe need some help from that. I need some comfort. I need some advice. I need some support. Let us give that to each other. Let us give that to each other. And in doing that, what happens is we deepen our awareness of what it is we might want for ourselves in our own dying and death, and also ways that we can be the best support to each other. It was like one of my dearest friends, she was like an adopted sister, and she was very ill. And she said, Janet, I just want you to come and sing. Don't talk to me. She actually died at Kaiser Hospital. She had had several strokes. And she said, just come and sing. That's all. I just want a hug from you and to come and sing. And so I brought my guitar up to Kaiser, and not everyone was happy about it, but I said, this is what she told me she wanted to do. And then afterwards, people started, we started singing together and singing, there's a wonderful song by Chris Williamson called Lullaby. And I had everybody, we were all singing it together. And it wasn't too much later that she died. And so it just gives us a chance, my friends, to, bring what we can bring. Bring what we can bring. There was another person who was in a hospice program. She did not have any family nearby. And she said, for God's sakes, Janet, get me some chocolate. And I guess at this hospice program, this was happened many years ago, there was no chocolate to be found. So I ran out. I knew she liked See's candy. So I ran out and got her a 2-pound box of her favorite See's candy. And she says, now I can die peacefully. So, my friends, Joni, did you have something?
I just wanted to say that my mom had COPD and was on the verge of death, and then they would treat her. and then she'd get well again, and then she'd be on the verge of death. And so finally she said, I'm not going to be treated, I'm going to go. But shortly after she passed away, she came to me and she was so happy and so healthy and so young. And in a dress I remembered from my childhood, and the sky was blue and bright. And she said, oh, Joan, it's so nice here. I wish I'd come sooner.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. So I
So
think we might have to have another night where we talk about our experiences.
But she
Yeah.
had to get her mindset that she wasn't going to burn in hell. That was
Yeah.
her big thing. Once
Oh,
she
yeah.
got that settled, then she could not be treated and choose to go on.
Yeah. And I just want to accent what you just said, Joan, because I had that experience with my grandmother, because she had, old Catholic, upbringing. And, I'm not trying to judge that at all, but in her perception of it, it was like, I've done bad things. I might go to hell or I might land in purgatory. And so we would spend time, near her death. She was in a convalescent hospital. She was in a skilled nursing facility, and she and I would read to her some spiritual teachings from her tradition. And she said, oh, it's not black and white, is it? And it was really funny, but she kind of told me, and then I was not there with her when she died, but she died a day later, and the staff, and she had been somewhat agitated, and once she was able to come to peace with that, just as you said, Joan, she was able to die peacefully. So, and she was like 95,
Yeah,
right?
my mom told me I was a terrible mother. I know I'm going to burn in hell. I said, yes, you were a terrible mother, but you know what? We all grew up and we're all strong and smart and managing on our own. And so it paid off. Life was easy when we got out on our own. So it's not a problem. When we don't care, we're not suffering from it, and you can't suffer from it.
Hmm. So just holding that energy, my friends, of holding it all, I would offer to you, holding it all, right? Just holding it all with open arms and with a loving heart. And know that you are enough, my friends. You are enough.
amen.
Thank you so much, each and every one of you. Be really
Yes.
extra gentle with yourself. This was an intense topic. So be very gentle with yourself. Do something fun and light, socially, without any socially redeeming value whatsoever. We talked about a pretty intense subject. So do something bad and decadent for yourself. And I'm personally thinking
Have some
chocolate.
ice cream.
We're
Have
talking
Yay!
chocolate here, people.
That's right.
hot chocolate.
Yes, we are talking hot chocolate.
That's right. Thank you, my lovely ones.
Thank you so much. It was
Thank
fun.
you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good
Wherever
night.
everyone is, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
being here.
you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night.
Much love, much peace, and
Yes.
smiles. Thank you.
Yes.